That sounds bold, but the truth is just as stark. After age 60, you lose muscle gradually, silently. And if you don't act, you'll lose strength, mobility, and metabolic resilience. You might be eating well, exercising a little, maybe lifting weights, yet still see your muscle mass slide away. Why? Here's what's really going on inside your body. As you age, your cells become less responsive to the signals telling them to build. The leucine mTOR switch becomes harder to flip. Insulin resistance slowly builds. Hormones shift, and chronic low-grade inflammation and oxidative stress persist. All of these factors blunt your body's ability to use protein and resistance training to rebuild or even maintain muscle. In fact, what the research shows is that older adults often need 2 to 3 times the leucine stimulus to get the same muscle protein synthesis response as younger people. That means many of us, even if we're eating protein, never reach that internal threshold for muscle growth. We may be feeding our bodies, but not triggering the growth process. But there's hope and a surprisingly simple tool. What if by adding a specific high leucine ingredient to your morning coffee, you could begin to flip your muscle switch every single day? It's not a gimmick, it's rooted in physiology and emerging evidence. Recent observational studies even show that coffee consumption is correlated with higher skeletal muscle mass in middle-aged and older adults. Frontiers. Now, before you pour your next cup, you must understand this is not about coffee alone. This is a lever, not a hero. You still need the metabolic environment, resistance training, adequate sleep, hormone balance, and recovery. But this lever, when used right, gives you a daily simple high-impact trigger to help nudge your muscle system back into responsiveness. In this video, we will explore the science behind why aging weakens your muscle signaling, not just your strength. The data supporting coffee pie leucine-rich boost as a practical tool for people over 60. How to structure your morning cup, how much, when, and why, without harming your metabolism. The other pillars you must align: insulin sensitivity, sleep, resistance training, so that the boost actually works. A realistic protocol you can start tomorrow at home, no fancy supplements or gimmicks. If this is useful to you, and especially if you felt powerless watching your muscles shrink year by year, consider subscribing. I break down science into tools you can use every day. Let's dive in. Let me start with a question. Have you ever noticed that after 60, even people who eat well and stay active still seem to lose muscle? Their arms get thinner, their posture softens, and their energy drops, even though their diet hasn't changed. Most people assume that's just aging. But here's the truth. It's not age, it's metabolism. Here's what's really going on inside your body. As we get older, our muscle tissue becomes resistant to the very signals that once told it to grow. This is known as anabolic resistance, and it's almost identical to insulin resistance. The same cellular blockages that stop your body from burning fat also stop it from building muscle. Think of your muscle cells like a garden. When you're young, every time you eat protein or move your body, you water that garden, and new muscle fibers sprout easily. But over time, inflammation, stress, poor sleep, and insulin resistance clog up the soil. So even when you water the garden with protein or exercise, it doesn't absorb. That's why older adults can eat the same amount of protein and still lose muscle year after year. Now, research from the Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia, and Muscle 2024 shows that this anabolic resistance is driven by metabolic dysfunction, not just age. When insulin signaling, mitochondrial function, and inflammation are repaired, the muscle building signal returns even after. That means you can reverse sarcopenia naturally if you fix the root cause. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your muscles as a savings account. When you're young, every meal is a deposit and the balance grows easily. But with chronic insulin resistance, you start paying a metabolic tax. Every meal deposits less, and every night cortisol and inflammation quietly withdraw from your muscle bank. The result? You end up in metabolic debt, losing strength, balance, and metabolism at the same time. The good news? You can reopen that metabolic vault. It starts with restoring insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial function, and amino acid signaling. When those systems wake back up, your muscle starts listening again, no matter your age. So how do we do that? It's not just about eating more protein. It's about activating the protein you already eat. And that starts with one critical amino acid, leucine. We'll break that down in the next section, and I'll show you exactly how much you need and what foods actually deliver it, because most high protein meals never hit the growth threshold. But before we move on, if this kind of breakdown helps you understand your body better, consider subscribing. I post evidence-based content like this every week to help you take control of your metabolism naturally without pills, powders, or guesswork. Now that you understand why muscle loss accelerates with age, let's talk about the single most overlooked key to reversing it, the leucine threshold. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Protein alone doesn't build muscle. What matters is whether your body senses that protein and flips on the switch called muscle protein synthesis, or MPS. And that switch depends almost entirely on one amino acid, leucine. Think of leucine like the ignition key in a car. You can fill the tank with plenty of gas, that's your protein, but unless you turn the key, the engine doesn't start. Leucine is that ignition signal for your muscles. Now, here's the catch. After age 60, that ignition key starts to rust. Your cells become less sensitive to leucine, meaning you need more of it per meal to trigger the same growth signal you had at 30. This is why older adults can eat what looks like a high-protein diet. Eggs for breakfast, chicken for lunch, fish for dinner, and still lose muscle. They never reach the leucine threshold. What the research shows is that younger adults need roughly 2 grams of leucine per meal to trigger MPS. But after 60, the body often needs 3 to 4 grams to get the same effect. That's roughly 30-40 grams of high-quality protein in one sitting, not spread across the day in tiny amounts. So if you're eating a piece of toast with a small egg, that's not enough. If you're sipping a protein drink with 10 grams of protein, that's not enough either. You need a complete leucine-rich dose to tell your body, build muscle now. Let me explain this with a whiteboard analogy. So imagine your muscles have a growth gate that only opens when leucine hits a certain level in the bloodstream. If you graze all day on small snacks, that gate never opens. But if you eat one solid protein-dense meal, like 30 grams of whey, or a serving of grass-fed beef, or eggs plus cottage cheese, you flood the bloodstream with leucine, the gate swings open, and your muscle cells get the growth signal they've been waiting for. Here's a simple way to apply this starting tomorrow. Front load your protein. Your first meal sets the metabolic tone for the day. Make it protein dominant, 30-40 grams minimum. 2, focus on leucine-rich foods. Animal proteins like whey, eggs, beef, chicken, fish, and Greek yogurt top the list. If you're plant-based, use leucine-enhanced blends, pea and rice protein together with added BCAAs. 3, don't snack all day. Allow clear feeding and fasting windows. This helps the MPS switch reset between meals, making each dose of protein more effective. One of the most exciting findings from a 2024 meta-analysis in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition is that older adults who hit their leucine threshold at least twice daily gain significant lean mass and strength compared to those who didn't, even without increasing total calories. So the goal isn't to eat more food, it's to eat with precision. Because when it comes to muscle, your body doesn't count the grams, it listens to the signal. In the next section, we'll build on this and talk about how you can amplify that leucine signal naturally by pairing it with something you probably already drink every morning, your coffee. And no, we're not just talking about caffeine. We're going to turn your morning cup into a metabolic muscle activator. If you're finding this valuable so far, take a second to like this video. It helps this content reach more people who need it. Most people over 60 start their day the same way, with a cup of coffee. It's comforting, familiar, and for many, it's the only thing that truly wakes them up. But here's something most people don't realize. Coffee can either protect your muscle or destroy it, depending on what you add to it and when you drink it. Let's unpack this carefully. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Coffee is more than caffeine. It's full of polyphenols, plant compounds that improve mitochondrial function and insulin sensitivity. When used correctly, it can enhance your muscle's ability to burn fat and generate energy. But if you drink it on an empty stomach, especially first thing in the morning, it can also spike cortisol, your body's stress hormone. Think of cortisol like a double-edged sword. In small doses, it wakes you up and mobilizes energy, which is good. But if it stays high, it starts breaking down muscle tissue to create glucose. This is called gluconeogenesis. Your body literally converts your muscle into sugar to fuel your brain. And if this happens daily, coffee first, breakfast later, it accelerates the very muscle loss you're trying to reverse. So here's the fix. You want to pair your coffee with amino acids, especially leucine and collagen, to flip that cortisol signal from catabolic breaking down to anabolic building up. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine caffeine as a spark. On its own, it ignites energy, but can burn through fuel too fast. If you add the right amino acids like leucine or hydrolyzed collagen, you give that spark a steady source of energy instead of letting it scorch your muscle. A 2024 study in Nutrients Journal found that older adults who combined coffee with whey protein or essential amino acids in the morning had 40% higher muscle protein synthesis rates compared to those who drank coffee alone. Even better, their insulin response improved, meaning they stayed energized without the mid-morning crash. So here's your simple, practical protocol. 1, delay your first coffee by 60-90 minutes after waking. This allows your natural cortisol peak to come down before adding caffeine, preventing muscle breakdown. 2, add amino acids or protein to your coffee. Try 1 scoop of whey, isolate collagen peptides, or leucine-enriched amino powder. This converts your morning drink into a muscle-preserving formula. 3, add healthy fats if desired. A teaspoon of MCT oil or grass-fed butter helps stabilize blood sugar and keeps you in a fat-burning state, ideal if you practice intermittent fasting. 4, avoid sugar and refined creamers. They spike insulin, blunt fat metabolism, and feed inflammation, all enemies of muscle health. When you start your day this way, your coffee becomes more than a ritual. It becomes a metabolic signal telling your body to preserve lean mass, burn fat, and fuel energy the right way. Remember, it's not about removing coffee. It's about optimizing it. You're not giving up pleasure. You're giving your body the tools to make that pleasure work for your physiology, not against it. In the next section, we'll connect the dots even deeper, because if cortisol and stress aren't managed, no amount of leucine or protein will help. We'll uncover how chronic stress literally blocks muscle growth and how to reset your body's hormonal rhythm naturally. And before we move on, if this content is helping you see your morning routine in a new light, subscribe now. I post evidence-based strategies like this every week to help you take control of your metabolism naturally. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that during stressful weeks, even if you're eating right, your body feels weaker, your recovery slows down, and your belly fat seems to rise? That's not just aging. That's cortisol, your body's main stress hormone, quietly stealing your muscle and storing fat. When you know it, here's what's really going on inside your body. Cortisol is meant to protect you. When your brain senses stress, physical, emotional, or even metabolic, it sends a signal to your adrenal glands to release cortisol. This helps you wake up, think clearly, and respond to challenges. But chronically elevated cortisol from poor sleep, constant worry, late night screen time, or too much caffeine sends a very different signal to your muscle cells. Instead of building, they start breaking down. That's because cortisol triggers gluconeogenesis, the process where your liver converts muscle protein into glucose for quick energy. It's your body's emergency backup plan, but when it runs every day, it becomes a slow leak in your muscle bank account. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your muscles are like a beautiful brick house you've built over decades. Every meal, every workout adds new bricks. That's growth. But every time cortisol spikes unnecessarily, your body takes a few bricks off the wall and burns them for fuel. Do that for months or years, and it's no wonder the house starts collapsing, even if you're eating right. Now, here's the key insight. You can't completely eliminate cortisol, nor should you. You need it to wake up, to move, and to stay alert. The goal is balance, restoring the natural circadian rhythm of cortisol so it peaks in the morning, drops steadily through the day, and stays low at night. Here's how to do that. Start your mornings with light exposure, not screens. Get 5-10 minutes of sunlight as soon as possible after waking. This resets your circadian clock, aligning cortisol release with daylight. Research from Frontiers in Endocrinology 2024 shows that morning light exposure improves muscle recovery and reduces stress-driven catabolism in older adults. Time your caffeine intake strategically. As we discussed in the last section, delay coffee for 60-90 minutes after waking. This allows your natural cortisol peak to subside before you stimulate it again. Otherwise, you double your stress signal and double your muscle loss. 3. Eat your first protein-rich meal within 2 hours of waking. This provides amino acids that buffer cortisol's catabolic effects, flipping your metabolism into repair mode. 4. Practice micro-recovery. Short bouts of parasympathetic activity, slow breathing, brief walks, or gratitude journaling lower cortisol faster than you might think. Even 2 minutes of slow nasal breathing before a meal has been shown to reduce post-meal cortisol spikes. 5. Prioritize deep sleep. Most muscle repair occurs during slow-wave sleep when cortisol is at its lowest and growth hormone is highest. If you cut your sleep short, you interrupt this natural anabolic window. No supplement can replace that. Now, here's the metabolic truth. You can't out-eat or out-supplement chronic stress. If cortisol stays high, it blunts your mTOR pathway, the master switch for muscle growth. Even if you hit your leucine threshold, your body can't activate MPS efficiently in a high-stress state. That's why in functional medicine, we always treat stress as a metabolic disorder, not just a psychological one. When cortisol normalizes, insulin improves, mitochondria recover, and muscle tissue starts responding again. It's all connected. And the next section will explore exactly how to turn that connection into action by learning how to reactivate mTOR and rebuild muscle even with minimal exercise. I'll show you how 10 minutes of the right kind of movement can reignite growth signals that you thought were gone for good. Here's the truth that surprises a lot of people. You don't lose muscle because you're getting older. You lose it because your mTOR pathway goes quiet. And the fastest way to wake it back up isn't hours in the gym. It's brief, strategic resistance training done the right way. Let's unpack this. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your muscles are like antennas. They constantly scan for growth signals, things like leucine, insulin, and mechanical tension. When they pick up those signals, they activate a molecular switch called mTOR, short for mechanistic target of rapamycin. This is your body's main growth and repair switch. When mTOR turns on, your body says build. When it's off, your body says conserve. Now, after 60, mTOR becomes harder to trigger, partly because of lower hormones, but mostly because of inactivity and insulin resistance. If you spend most of your day sitting, your muscles stop responding to even strong signals. That's why simply eating more protein isn't enough. You have to remind your muscles they're still needed. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your muscles as employees in a factory. If the boss stops giving them work, that's your daily movement. They assume they're not needed and start downsizing. But the moment you hand them a task, resistance, load, or time under tension, they wake up, rehire, and start rebuilding. And here's the beauty. You don't need heavy weights or fancy machines to do this. Studies published in the Journal of Gerontology 2024 found that even bodyweight exercises, when done with slow, controlled tension, activate mTOR and stimulate muscle protein synthesis, even in adults in their. So here's your metabolic muscle protocol, what I call the 10-minute anabolic reset. Then pick 4 movements that hit large muscle groups: squats or chair stands, wall push-ups, resistance band rows, and standing calf raises. Do each for 40 seconds, rest for 20, and repeat twice. That's just 8 minutes of total work. 3, focus on time under tension. Lower slowly. Count to 3 on the way down. That's where the growth signal lives. 4, finish with a short asymmetric hold. Hold the bottom of a squat or push-up for 10 seconds. This amplifies the mTOR signal. 5, roll it with protein or your amino-enhanced coffee. Within 30 minutes, feed the signal with 30-40 grams of high-quality protein. This locks in the growth response. The magic here is in the consistency, not the duration. Doing 10 minutes of quality tension daily beats 2 hours of random movement once a week. Your muscles thrive on frequent reminders, not occasional punishment. What the research shows is that combining resistance work, leucine-rich nutrition, and proper recovery can restore muscle responsiveness in as little as 6 weeks. even in people who've lost 20–30% of their lean mass due to aging. And here's something even more powerful. Resistance training doesn't just build muscle, it lowers insulin, improves mitochondrial health, and stabilizes cortisol. It's one of the most potent anti-aging tools we have, and it's completely free. So if you're watching this and thinking, I'm too old to start, remember this. Your muscle is listening. It's just waiting for the right signal. Start small. Move with intention, and let your muscle relearn how to respond. In the next section, we'll complete the picture with what I call the regeneration triad: sleep, magnesium, and mitochondria, because your recovery process is where the real growth happens. This is how you make all your hard work stick and keep muscle on your frame for life. If this section gave you clarity or motivation, consider subscribing. I share practical, science-based strategies like this every week to help you rebuild your metabolism naturally. You've learned how to activate your muscle-building machinery through leucine, strategic coffee use, and resistance training. Now we need to complete the cycle, because what you do between workouts determines whether you actually grow stronger or just stay tired. And that comes down to 3 pillars. I call the regeneration triad: sleep, magnesium, and mitochondria. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Muscle doesn't grow in the gym. It grows when you rest, specifically during deep sleep. That's when your brain releases growth hormone, GH, and your tissues repair microscopic muscle tears. If you're not sleeping deeply, you're skipping the very phase where muscle turns from stimulated to rebuilt. But there's more. Sleep also regulates your cortisol curve and restores insulin sensitivity. Poor sleep doesn't just make you tired, it locks your metabolism in catabolic mode. You wake up with higher blood sugar, slower muscle recovery, and weaker appetite control. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of your body like a smartphone. During the day, you use it. That's your movement, your workouts, your stress. But at night, it needs a full charge. Deep sleep is the fast charger. If you keep unplugging it, halfway by scrolling late, eating too close to bed, or sleeping in fragmented cycles, you start every day at 40. That's where magnesium comes in. This mineral is the unsung hero of muscle health, responsible for over 300 enzymatic reactions, including those that power mitochondrial energy and muscle relaxation. As we age, magnesium levels plummet due to medications, processed food, and stress. Low magnesium leads to poor sleep, muscle cramps, and even impaired muscle protein synthesis. The 2024 study in Nutrients found that adults over 60 who supplemented with 300–400 mg of magnesium glycinate or malate daily had significantly better sleep quality, lower cortisol, and improved lean body mass, even without changing exercise or diet. So here's how to build your regeneration triad into your daily routine. 1. Prioritize deep sleep. Aim for 7–8 hours per night, but focus on sleep quality, not just duration. Keep your room dark, cool, and tech-free 60 minutes before bed. A brief 5-minute breathing or gratitude routine helps drop cortisol faster than any supplement. 2. Supplement with magnesium wisely. Take 300–400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate, taurate, or malate about 1–2 hours before bed. Avoid cheap oxide forms. They're poorly absorbed and often cause stomach upset. 3. Support your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are the engines that power muscle contraction and repair. Feed them with nutrients like CoQ10, alpha-lipoic acid, PQQ, and B vitamins, or simply eat more foods like wild salmon, eggs, leafy greens, and olive oil. Intermittent fasting also strengthens mitochondrial efficiency by forcing your body to recycle damaged ones, a process called mitophagy. 2. Stop eating 3 hours before bed. Late night meals disrupt melatonin and keep insulin elevated, which suppresses growth hormone, your muscle's main repair signal. 5. Go to bed before 11 p.m. Most of your natural GH pulse occurs between 11 p.m. and 2. If you miss that window, you lose up to 70% of your nightly muscle regeneration potential. When you combine deep sleep, optimal magnesium, and healthy mitochondria, your body shifts from breakdown mode to rebuild mode. You'll notice more morning energy, better strength, and even sharper focus because your brain's mitochondria thrive under the same conditions as your muscles. Now, in the next and final section, we're going to bring it all together, every insight, every protocol, into one clear action plan. You'll see how these small daily choices combine into a powerful blueprint for reversing muscle loss naturally, even after 60. Let's bring it all together. You now understand that muscle loss after 60 isn't inevitable. It's metabolic. It's not just about aging. It's about signaling. Your body listens to the inputs. You give it the foods you eat, the stress you allow, the sleep you protect, and the hormones you balance. Here's what's really going on inside your body. When you combine protein timing, leucine, healthy fats, and strength training, you reactivate the same growth machinery that naturally declines with age, the mTOR pathway. But when you add chronic stress, high insulin, and poor sleep, you flip that switch off. What the research shows, especially in studies from 2023-2024, is that this process is reversible. Adults in their 60s, 70s, even 80s can rebuild up to 5-10 pounds of lean muscle within months without drugs simply by restoring their metabolic rhythm. Think of it like this. If your metabolism is the engine, muscle is the horsepower. You don't lose horsepower because the car is old. You lose it because the oil's dirty, the spark plugs are clogged, and no one's pressing the accelerator. We clean that up by fixing the root causes, lowering insulin with smart fasting, and reduce sugar, boosting leucine and collagen through nutrient-rich foods, activating muscle fibers through short, powerful resistance training, supporting mitochondria with magnesium, CoQ10, and deep sleep. So here's your muscle rebuild blueprint. Morning, for coffee paw collagen peptides, 10 gram, leucine, 2 tab rack, light movement, or 10-minute walk. Midday, shepherd protein-rich meal, eggs, salmon, or lentils. Include magnesium-rich greens, spinach, kale. Evening, based on 10 minutes of breathing or stretching. Magnesium glycinate before bed. Fix no food 3 hours before sleep, and at least 3 days a week. Lift something heavy, bands, dumbbells, or your own body weight. Do this consistently for 8 weeks, and you'll feel the difference: stronger legs, steadier balance, better posture, and renewed energy. It's not magic. It's biology, restored to how it was designed to function. Let me leave you with this thought. You can't control your age, but you can control your muscle signals. And muscle is more than strength. It's a metabolic organ. It protects your brain, your heart, your bones, and your independence. If you rebuild muscle, you rebuild your metabolism, and with it, your vitality. So here's your challenge. Starting tomorrow morning, add that collagen paw leucine to your coffee, lift something heavy, and protect your sleep tonight. Then track how you feel. Because once your metabolism wakes up, everything changes. If this added value, like the video and subscribe to join others optimizing their health naturally. I post evidence-based insights every week to help you regain energy, build strength, and age with confidence. Remember, you are not too old to rebuild. You're just one signal away from transformation.